My name is Cameron Fisk, and this all started here in California. I was born in Templeton, a small town, Templeton, California, raised in Fresno, and the beginning of my life started with when I was really young. My parents divorced. I don't know how old I was. I was 2 or 3 or somewhere in there. I don't
Yeah.
know. But by that time, we had moved to Fresno. Um, let's see. Yeah, to paint a picture of how life started out is my mom was a drug addict, and at that age, I mean, you don't know anything, so I didn't understand everything, but she struggled with drugs her entire life, and that's the reason for divorce. But that's also going to help to understand why things played out the way they did in my life. So quickly, right away into Fresno, growing up. We lived on more of the poorer side of town of Fresno, the
hmm
southeast side of Fresno. Um, and I
Is this
was
all three of you, your mom and your dad and you at this point?
no, at this time it was just me, my dad, and my brother.
Okay.
I only have one brother, so it was
Okay.
just me, my dad, and my brother.
Okay.
My dad was a solo parent. He was the one providing for us. He was the one supporting, paying all the bills and whatnot. My mom was in and out of our lives quite frequently.
Okay.
Um, so we grew up in Fresno in a neighborhood that was considered county. There's no paved sidewalks. There's
Oh,
no
right.
street lamps.
Yeah.
It's all dirt. And I was introduced to some friends on the block, and that's what began the whole forming of my life before Christ,
Okay.
if you will.
Yeah.
Um, my friends were like 5 years older than me,
Okay.
and I met them around 8 years old. And at that time, 5 years is a
A
pretty
big.
big gap
Yeah.
for younger kids.
Yeah.
So, and they were already into smoking and drinking and just the typical uh, things that the world has that draw us in. Usually not for that age, and also pornography.
Okay.
And at that age, I wasn't really drawn into the smoking. I've had asthma my whole life,
Oh.
so I didn't care for that. I wasn't really drawn into the alcohol at that age. It was really bitter. I didn't like the taste.
Yeah.
But my stronghold that I ended up getting caught up on was the pornography. And at that time, it was 1990. I don't know, 99 or something at that time.
hmm
Uh, or maybe 2000. The phones weren't out. Internet really wasn't around, at least not in my neighborhood and not
Okay.
in our household. It was all magazines.
Yeah.
And it started with my friends of friends who stole their dad's collection or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's how it all began for me. And then as life progressed,
Can I ask you, did you have we didn't talk about like did you have an idea of who God was or anything at that age?
at that age, I did. I always, as far back as I can remember, I've always believed there was God.
Yes.
I mean, my parents had talked about him maybe once or twice in that time. At that age, I don't know, but around that age, actually, my mom was really into the Mormon Church,
Okay.
and so I do remember the Mormon Church, and we only went for a couple years while she was kind of in and out before she really took off.
Okay.
Um, and I didn't necessarily like it. It was really, really like uniform. We all had to be dressed up in suits, even as kids, and
hmm
it was very like going through the paces. I don't know. I was not drawn to it. I was a very hyper kid. I wanted to be out and doing
Sure.
stuff, running around, and to sit still for an hour was not for me.
Sure.
So I didn't
But it wasn't a
grasp a lot.
denial of the existence of
No,
God, but
I've
not
never.
a relationship at that point.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I've never been like, I guess you call it atheist or in denial that there was God. I
hmm
always knew, yeah, I believe there's a God, but I just
hmm
don't know anything about him.
Okay.
So, and he wasn't really around in my life. I mean, we
hmm
had that little stint of the Mormon church, and
hmm
then my mom disappeared, and that kind of all fell away. My dad was
Okay.
not interested.
Okay.
So, um,
So it took you off track.
that's all right. I remember.
Okay.
So then as life progressed, I mean, hanging around my friends, things just naturally, progressively, just got worse. I mean,
Mhm.
the smoking became a normal thing for them. Drinking was a little more far and few in between because it was hard to get a hold of alcohol. It was basically stealing my friend's dad's collection,
Okay.
basically, and but we couldn't drink a whole lot because I mean his dad would notice.
Right.
So it was really not often at all, really. But the whole lifestyle of that. So
How and then was your dad aware of what you were doing?
no,
No.
he had no idea.
So you hid it from him. So there was a
Hmm.
certain sense about it, about if you should be doing it or not.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my dad he was in the military. He was very strict about things,
Mhm.
but at the same time lenient. He let us kind of free range, kind
Mhm.
of. He let us go run around the neighborhood and just go and have fun. But he was really like strict of you're gonna do your homework, you're
Mhm.
gonna you're gonna play sports, you're like
Mhm.
you're going to do these things. Other than that, it was kind of free range. So I mean, me and my brother, we kind of got good at hiding what we were doing
Mhm. So was
around.
your brother joining you with these friends?
Yeah, we all hung around at the
Okay.
same group.
Okay.
So he was submerged into the same things I was.
And is he older or younger?
Younger,
Younger.
28 months
Okay.
younger. So
Okay.
so which is it's a bitter spot in my life because just to paint like a picture of how it looked like. So it was all about being tough. I mean, we're in the neighborhood. It was on the poorer side of things. Gangs were really prevalent around there. Although we didn't have a whole lot of gang activity, thankfully, on that block
Mhm.
where we were.
Mhm.
Um, uh, so it was all about being tough, and basically my friends kind of pushed me into hating my brother
Mhm.
almost
Okay.
because he was younger. He was the youngest in the group. We are always like pushing him away, or I don't know. It was bad looking back. I feel bad, pretty bad about it because
Yeah.
I mean, we could have had so much better of a friendship growing up
Sure.
as brothers,
Sure.
and we never really did. It was always like
Right.
I want no part of you, even though he hung around until we got a little bit older, and then he was just like, forget it, I'm doing my own thing then.
Right.
So as we got older, the smoking progressed, the pornography progressed, internet came out at that point. The access to that stuff was much easier
Mhm.
as we had a computer in our house. My friends, they started to progress into, they wanted to get involved with gang activity. They got into the whole tagging thing. And I didn't really care for doing that. Um, so eventually our friendship by high school started to split.
Mhm.
They ended up going even further, breaking into people's houses, stealing stuff, tagging people's houses up. I got a little bit of the drift because they got caught at one point
Mhm.
and blame somehow got onto my plate.
Mhm.
Long story short, it got sifted out and I got hands free from it, luckily.
Mhm.
And at that point, I kind of separated myself. But then the high school years came. Um, girls became a thing.
Mhm.
Drinking started to become a thing.
Mhm.
Smoking still really wasn't my cup of tea. It
Mhm.
just, I think it was because my asthma. I always struggled to breathe my entire life.
Yeah.
Um, um, so uh, life really started to get hitting hard by the time I graduated high school. By the time I graduated high school, I met a new friend who was like a binge drinker. He was
Okay.
like all about it. So we would, we were both underage, but he knew the owner of a grocery store or a liquor
Oh.
store that would sell us alcohol. So we would go buy a bunch of alcohol and go out and bonfire. I was more like an active drinker, and so was he. So we'd like to drink and then go do some climbing roofs and breaking into schools, all this random stuff. Um, um, Sleeping around became a thing. The
Mm.
pornography just became a worse and worse stronghold. It started to become like a daily basis kind of thing. It
Mhm.
really took a grasp of me, and at that time I didn't think much of it. Um, but as I left home, um, I I bounced around a little bit first. So my mom, she was in and out of our lives
Mhm.
here and there. She was moving all over the place, living with whoever. still stuck on the
In the
drug
Fresno
train.
area, but not
All over. She was
Okay.
in Fresno, she was in San Luis Obispo, she was down in Visalia, she was in Modesto. She was like just wherever she can find a place, I guess. I don't know, but there would be times where she would be around, we'd be able to see her, we'd go spend time with her, and then there'd be times where months would go by and we didn't see her, hear anything. So, but as I got older, she ended up back into Fresno. And at one point, I moved out of my dad's house because my dad and I, as I got older, the typical high school kid clashing with my dad, didn't want to obey. And so I moved in with my mom because she was more freedom. She had more freedom about what I could do and go who I would see and relationships and all that stuff. And so I lived with her for some time. There was some sort of confrontation between him and my mom, and my dad, my brother, just like I said, didn't want to listen to anyone, so he just started talking back to her, and I was there, and it just for some reason, it just boiled my blood, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I got in front of him and confronted him and said, "You don't talk to my mom like that." And we start yelling back and forth, and I kind of like blacked out. I don't remember a whole lot. And she said I just picked her up and moved her out of the way, and then went after my brother. And so we got in a tussle, and then. So after that all fell apart, though, my mom ended up losing the house, and so I moved back with my dad. My brother also did too. And fast forward some time, let me think about how this happened. So I moved down south with to like the Inland Empire, Riverside, Southern California, to live with relatives to get a job, hopefully kind of change pace of life.
Now, who initiated that change of life?
My aunt actually gave me, she kind of extended her hand to give us an option, because she knew I was out of high school. I didn't really have any direction. I was bouncing back and forth. I was in and out of college. I mean, I had dropped out of college there. And then she said, "Hey, come on over here, and you can stay here rent free for now, and then you can get into college and then get a job and get on your feet." And so
vocationally and residentially, a change of life. Not what was going on inside of your head.
No,
about,
it just continued.
Okay.
Can't say it really got a whole lot worse, because it was already like plateaued at that point. Drinking became a weekend thing. I wasn't the type to I was the type to socially drink, but I drank to get drunk. I didn't like beer. I didn't want to sit here and sip a beer for a couple hours. No, if we're going to drink, we're going to get drunk. That's the goal. Because I didn't like the taste. I liked the feeling. Okay. So that's what I shot for every time. So I drank till drunk. Every time. And so, so my friend and I, actually, we moved down south, and we were just like best friends at that time. He's the guy that kind of got me into that whole drinking lifestyle. And anyways, the work blew up. There was a lot of politics and family drama. It was, anyways, so that all fell apart. And by then I moved back to Fresno, and I moved in with my mom, because I was not really on great terms with my dad. But at this time, my mom was now living in Section 8 apartments, which is, for those of you that don't know, it's low income housing that's funded by the government. And based on what you make, you either pay a little or none at all, based on how, anyways. So anyway, she was living there. And just to kind of paint you a picture of what my life started to look like at this point, it started to really start going south, because now I dropped out of college completely. Drinking became pretty heavy. And I moved in with my mom, who's a drug addict, and she was, to be more specific, it wasn't just light drugs. She was doing meth, and her whole surrounding was about that too. So
her whole surrounding, meaning the company she
friends,
kept, or just
people
that
neighborhood, everything. And I'm gonna expand on what it looked like. So we lived on the second story, and I had one of the bedrooms of 2 bedrooms. And at that time, my mom was going between Modesto and Fresno apartments, Section 8 housing. She went to go live in Modesto, and she would come and visit every once in a while. But she had a roommate that continued living there. Well, she was an escort. It's a
Okay.
fancy word for prostitute, basically.
Yeah.
So to give you an idea what it looked like, it's just
She
crazy
bring
to
him back
think.
to the house.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I didn't think much of it. I don't know why. It blows my mind to think I lived in that situation. But if you walked into that apartment at that time to paint a picture, it was hardwood floor, but there was a stripper pole in the living room.
Okay.
And I mean, alcohol always laying out, and did pretty good not to leave drugs out. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, she had people coming and going all the time, and so life there was a
And
little
were you working?
tough. At that point, I think I was working. I had gotten a job on a case dock. I was working. It was a physically demanding job, and I was working like 12-hour days.
Okay.
It was very demanding,
Mhm.
and it was like 5 or 6 days a week.
Mhm.
So
I was just wondering, like,
what I was doing.
like
Yeah.
how that all worked out. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So just to give you an idea of what it was like there. So my Jeep was broken into there, and there was fights all the time in that neighborhood. But there was this one particular morning that just, it's a scar that sits with me that old probably, well, won't ever go away. There was one morning, it was in the summertime. I woke up, but I wasn't fully awake. I wasn't like, it's like that halfway between fully asleep and awake. It's like you're still aware, you're kind of aware, but not fully awake. I was in that point. The sun was up at this point, somewhere around 7 a.m., I think. And I heard this loud thud in the whole apartment, like shook. And I sat up in bed, and it was dead quiet. And I thought, like maybe that was a dream. I couldn't tell if it did. I really hear that? I could. It was so quick. And so I went to go lay back down, and right as I did, I don't know, it must have been like 15 seconds. I mean, time, it felt forever. Like I sat there for a while, but I didn't hear anything. And right when I went to go lay back down, my mom yells at the top of her lungs, "Cameron!" And I jump out of bed and I put my sweats on. I open up the door and I start to run down the hallway. And then time went to slow motion. Like, I remember it so vividly. So coming from my bedroom, and you're looking down the hallway. It wasn't that long of a hallway. And right at the end of the hallway, it turns, it's the living room, and it turns immediate right to the front door. You can't see the front door if you're standing in the hall. All you can see is part of the couch and a fraction of the living room.
Okay.
So as I turned that corner, and why everything went to slow-mo is because as I was starting to run down that hall, what I was looking at was my mom was laying on her back, looking to her right down the hallway, and she was propped up on her elbows like this, looking at me, and blood is running down her face, like just bloody. And I didn't even know what I was thinking at this time. I was like, what is going on? And so as I'm running into this room, mind you, this is only probably 2 seconds, but it felt like minutes.
Right.
As I run into this room, what I see now is this lady is straddling her and looking up at me. And so I didn't even think. Just to paint a picture. She's an African American woman. She's probably 180, probably 5'10", maybe. But not a small woman.
Tiny.
And, yeah, not tiny. And so I just didn't even think. I was in my prime at this point. I just graduated. I was a water polo player. So I didn't even think. I just grabbed her by her waist, picked her up off my mom, put her on my shoulder, and then slammed her down on the couch. And I turned around and I looked at my mom. She had stood up at this point, and she looked totally dazed, and blood's now all over her face, all over her shirt. It's just getting everywhere. And I just yell at her, "Go get help!" And so she runs outside and runs down the stairs. And I would say,
are you just pinning the lady on the couch?
I just had her like this around her waist, and my weight and my shoulders like into her. And she didn't say nothing. She didn't say anything. She didn't struggle. She didn't move. Nothing. I think because the look on her face when I came into the room was, oh wow, she wasn't expecting me to be there. So at this point, now what's going on in my head is, I'm either really going to hurt this woman or I'm going to let her go. And a voice, now looking back, it was God speaking to me, because I didn't know what to think, was he said, let her go. And in my head, I was like, that's the stupidest. What is that? Like, like I'm like arguing with myself in my head or with God. It was strange. And so I don't know why, but I let her go. And when she got up, she just took off running downstairs and down the street. And when she did, I followed her out the door, and she, because I was thinking my mom's down there, but she didn't seem to care. She just ran. And so no attention to what my mom was doing. And when she did run, she was, after thinking about it, she was high as a kite, because she took off running, flailing and just yelling, like you couldn't even understand what she was saying. So it didn't surprise me, because my mom's a drug addict. Her boyfriend at the time was a dealer. So I kind of put it together brokenly, like what happened. And I just assumed, she was probably looking for the dealer. And anyways, so that's the kind of lifestyle I was living in at that time. Eventually I got sick of it, and
your mom was okay.
Well, my mom, what happened is the lady came looking for my mom's boyfriend, the dealer. She was probably looking for the next high. My mom was asleep at that time when she knocked on the door. My mom's a very slow riser. It takes her probably an hour to like fully start functioning. So she opened the door and answered it, and was like, because that lady was our neighbor, by the way. So she was like, what do you want? What's going on? She's like, hey, where's George, the dealer? And she's like, well, he's not here. And then went to proceed to close the door, and the lady,
she wanted her
freaked
fixed.
out. And just
gotcha.
slammed the door.
But your
open.
mom was okay, like.
Yeah, she recovered.
Right.
What it did, it fractured her skull, and it was a head wound. That's why she was bleeding so much. It concussed her pretty bad, and but the reason was it was a steel door in that complex. So when the door was forced open, it clocked her and knocked her out. That's the thud that I heard in the morning. And so her body.
And so you were like, okay, I can't live in this environment anymore.
It scarred me for like months. I couldn't sleep, because it's just like that would replay and replay and replay, and it was just it was stressful. Eventually it wore off, and I was able to go back to normal. But man, so I got tired of that lifestyle, and people. I got my Jeep broken into, my sound system stolen out of the vehicle, and just it was a miserable place to live. My dad, who didn't live like 3 blocks down, but at least the neighborhood was all right. People weren't doing that. So I ended up moving back with my dad. So this was the beginning of the end of that lifestyle. I got to the point where there was no more hope. Couldn't see a way out. At the same time, during all this stuff was happening, pornography, it went deeper. For those of you that don't know, it's a deep hole, and it keeps going. You end up in places that are very dark. It starts surfacey. It starts with minor attraction, and then you end up into crazy, crazy deep stuff. So at this point, I was starting to
like more twisted, because you're not responding in the same.
Because the whole reason it's a dopamine high. It's our body's endorphins that give us that high. We get the same when we eat, when we exercise, when all these different things that give us that dopamine hit. And it wasn't enough. So
that's why it had to go more twisted or more deeper, how you said it.
That's the chains the devil leads you in. And he's like, hey, I got the next high. Come on down deeper and deeper and deeper. And so at this point, I was starting to get into depth. And I mean, Satan has all these tricky ways to get us there. I mean, if you're going into places that you shouldn't be, eventually something else is going to cross your path that's going to take you to that next level. Because in anyone's right state of mind, they're going to think, I won't end up there. Like, what the heck? How do people become murderers?
I'll manage it.
I'll never become that. Just wait until you get caught in those chains, because it doesn't stop. And so while my life is starting to fall apart at this time, I had broken up with my girlfriend at the time. Friendships that I had were ruined because of the lifestyle choices I was making with girls, and them being involved and all this stuff. Um, I dropped out of college. I was now back living at home at my dad's house, and to kind of give you an idea of what that was, um, my dad is more of a hoarder. I mean, there's just stuff everywhere. It was not a great living condition, and there were times growing up where we were on a well, but in the summertime, sometimes our well went dry.
Yeah.
We didn't have running water. There was
Gotcha.
no water to shower, to do dishes, to cook with. To shower, I would ride my bike to the canal to shower at night. That's the kind of living situation I was in at that time. And so
Was he still in the military? Did you say?
no, he at that time he was out of the military before I was born.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he had that militant background. He had
Okay.
that
That formation.
yeah, that taste, if you
Yeah.
will, that you know how some people, not all people,
Mhm.
they retain that, and they retain that rigidness and strictness.
Mhm.
So he had it, not to the extreme, but he
Mhm.
had that kind of
Mhm.
rigidness to him. So so my life started to fall apart. I moved out of my mom's house. Now I'm back at my dad's house, and now I'm, I don't know, probably 22 at this point. And now I'm starting to think about my life. I'm starting to think about where I'm at.
Mhm.
So now to kind of paint a picture of who I was was very introverted. I'm more of a Lone Ranger type person. I didn't mind being alone. I was totally content. In fact, I need my alone time to like recharge.
Mhm.
So being alone didn't really affect me really. But at this time, when everything started to fall away,
Mhm.
I started to think about like, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
Where am I going to go? I'm in
Right.
this godforsaken town in this horrible living situation with no hope of the future. The pornography, even in the darkness, walking in the darkness, I realized that's not good.
Right.
It's getting out of control. It was now starting to get to a point where I had no power to stop. It was starting to scare me.
Mhm.
And the final blow, looking back, it was amazing how God, he just orchestrated how that all worked. He let me go. He said, "You want to find out what's down that path? Go ahead. You're going to
Mhm.
find it's empty."
Mhm.
So the final blow for me is, I told you I've had asthma my whole life. It
Yeah.
wasn't a strange thing. I was using my inhaler almost on a daily basis at some points. So I just dealt with it. There was points where I run out
Mhm.
and I needed my inhaler, but there's nothing I can do, so I just have to sit. And eventually it would go away, and
Okay.
I can carry on. So at this point now, it's winter time. I'm living back at my dad's house, but I'm not living in the house. I'm living in an RV trailer that he had because the house conditions weren't great.
Sure.
The RV conditions weren't great either, though. I mean, the roof was starting to fall in some places from dry rot, and which didn't help the whole asthma thing.
No.
So there was one morning. Um, well, there was a whole week actually where my asthma was like just persistent, and I didn't know what it was. I just like, it wasn't strange for me to struggle to breathe, but it would be so consistent where I'd struggle to breathe. I'd take my inhaler and it relieved me,
Mhm.
but then a few hours, maybe half a day would go by and it's back again. So it was like, it was starting to catch my attention, but I was like,
Right.
what's going on?
Right.
But then there was one morning where I woke up because I couldn't breathe
Right.
at like, I don't know, 2 or 3 a.m. I don't know what time it was. And it's wintertime and it's freezing out, but I'm just wearing shorts. I get up out of bed and I'm searching for my inhaler. I'm frantically like searching for my inhaler. I find it. I take my inhaler, nothing. And I'm like, oh
Like
man.
your body didn't respond, not that it was empty, but
Yeah, the
okay.
inhaler had plenty in it, but
Okay.
I wasn't getting relief.
Okay.
So I take it a couple more times, nothing. And now I'm starting to realize, oh dang, I think I'm in shock because it's freezing out. I'm not wearing a shirt. I'm in shorts.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably 38 degrees, 40, low 40s maybe in Fresno. That's like how it is in wintertime. And I realize, oh, I think I need to go to the hospital. And so I thought about it for a sec. and my dad was very against the hospitals, like, or the medical system. And I knew, just because I've been there before with him, where, Dad, I can't breathe, and he's like, you're fine, you're fine, you'll just sit it out, you'll be fine. And so I knew, if I went to go wake him up, he's going to tell me to go back to sleep,
Right.
or you'll be fine.
Right.
So I realized that's not an option. So I got on, my only source of transportation was a motorcycle at that time. I got on my motorcycle, I drove myself 20 minutes to the hospital, and
While not breathing very well.
no, but adrenaline now is just
Okay.
pumping. I wasn't cold. It was crazy.
Okay.
I was in shock.
Okay.
And so I get into the ER and they treat me, and they find out that I had acute pneumonia. So I couldn't breathe, and my inhaler wasn't doing anything because my lungs are filling up with fluid.
Yeah.
So, and who knows, it could have been the mold, or I don't know, who knows. But
Right.
anyways, they gave me antibiotics, they treated me, put me on a nebulizer,
Mm-hmm.
a breathing machine, and I was able to get relief. And I was like, oh.
Right.
I went back home, kept on the antibiotics. But it was at that
Did they
moment.
send you home with a nebulizer?
No,
Okay.
no. They just treated me, and they said, you'll be fine. You just need to be persistent about your antibiotics, because now you got to kill this infection
Okay.
in your lungs. And so I went home, and for the first time in my life, I never understood depression, but I think in fact, I know that's where I ended up at that point, because I sat down. I remember it was a clear day. It was cold, but I remember sitting in the chair in the RV and thinking about my life, thinking about, like, I can't believe I'm back here again, and I had no hope to move forward. And I was thinking, like, what am I going to do with myself? And the lingering fear of, I can't even stop this whole thing with the pornography was just, it was heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got to thinking, and suddenly God just, like, popped into my head, and I started thinking, and I thought, God, if you're really real, then take me out of here. Take me out of the situation. And I didn't know how to pray, but I just spoke that.
Sure.
And so that day ended. I didn't think much of it. But a week later, suddenly I had an opportunity to up and move out of the whole city, and I moved up to Placerville. And it was crazy. It was through a friend who ended up signing up for Labor Ready, who met another friend who was generous enough to say, oh yeah, you could sleep on my couch for free, and also I got another friend that has a job for you too. So I packed everything I owned. I didn't care. I was at the time I was driving an old 1993 Toyota pickup, and there was not one straight panel on that truck. It had been rolled. And the reason why I had that truck, because it was so cheap, because it had been rolled.
Okay.
So that's kind of the hillbilly thing I was doing at that time. And I drove up to the mountains, and I arrived at this guy's house who I didn't know. My friend wasn't there. He had flown out to Thailand at the time. And it was crazy for me, because I told you I was really introverted. To kind of show you how introverted I was, when I would go to the grocery store, I'd go and pull up to the store, and I'd sit in my car, and my hands would start sweating, and my heartbeat would start racing, and I'd just have to be like, oh man, I got to go inside. And it didn't matter if it was like dark and there's nobody in there, or the thought of going around people was just kind of, It was like driving anxiety in me. It was weird. It was like I was super introverted. I didn't want to be around people sometimes.
It had obviously come to
it was getting worse.
It was getting worse or something.
Yeah, and looking back now, actually, it's because of the pornography. Because the broken, skew relationship that they portray. And so I didn't know how to connect with people.
Right.
People became things to me. And so for sure, that's what was driving it.
Sure.
So it just shut me down, and I didn't want to be around people. And so to go up to a town I've never been in, off of my friend who told me of a friend, to this guy I didn't know, and to show up.
He's not even there.
My friend's not there, but that guy was. And so I showed up at 11 o'clock at night, and he welcomed me with arms wide open. It was the craziest thing. He's in my age group. He's the same age as I am. So it was strange to me, but but man, God opened that path, and suddenly my life track suddenly changed. Boom, just like that. Everything changed. But God hadn't quite stepped into my life fully yet. So
Did you think about that prayer? Like
nope. At that time,
at that time you
I
didn't.
didn't
It just in
give God any
retrospect
credit.
now.
I
Yeah.
just thought, oh, it's an opportunity. I'm going to take
Yeah.
it, and so I just went, and I didn't think much of it.
And your friend that had reached out to you saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this," was he from Fresno or?
Yeah, we grew up
Okay.
together.
So he just had a friend in Placerville.
Yeah. Well, no, he signed up for Labor Ready, ended up in Placerville working, and that's how he met that friend who put us both up.
Okay.
So he was just helping us out.
Okay.
So, and that's a whole nother bunny hole of a story, because
Okay.
why he helped us out because of the situations he's been in. And anyways, so it was kind of awesome. Although it became the next step deeper into life.
Okay.
It was the depth I was in was the pornography and drinking, and that's about how depth I would go. But then I moved up here, and those people, then it was like we're partying all the time, because the house we were living in, it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and there was at one point 8 people living there. So
for a room.
It was it was only one person to one room, because he was the owner's grandson.
Okay.
And then it was my friend's. He became my friend and his girlfriend in the other room. Everybody else was on the couch, on the floor. I mean, wherever you had a spot. In the living room.
Putting down sleeping bags or whatever.
So
okay.
It became like a frat house. I mean, it was partying, it was drinking, the whole sexual dynamic, because girls were coming and going, guys were all. I mean, it was just a mess. And so then I went even deeper. Then it became, because they were into psychedelics, they were into doing drugs and stuff, and I was like, because my mom was such a hard hit for me in my life, I was more like, nah, I'm not really into the drugs. So, but then they ended up talking me into doing mushrooms. So that's my next step. This is all condensed version. I moved up here in 2017, and I didn't find the Lord until December of 2020. So there were a couple years as all this stuff was unfolding. When I moved up here, I was working like a dog. I was bound and determined to give it my all to get out of that whole Fresno situation. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be anything like that. I didn't want to live that life anymore. All I could comprehend was money was the way out. So I worked my butt off to try to get out of there. And so that was pretty much what took up most of my time. But then the whole partying thing and taking drugs and doing the psychedelics. By then, though, by the time the psychedelics started to come around, this is now 2019. So prior to that, though, 2018, 2017 I moved up here. 2018 was just the follow-up. I was just working like a dog. I was working 7 days a week, and I was going wherever it took. At that time, I was pretty much living in the Bay, even though I was living up here, but not ever spending time really up here. So I was.
Did you have to commute every day, or were you there during?
No, I just decided to stay there. Yeah. I bought an RV at that point and stayed on the construction site. I was living on the construction site. So then it became during the day I was working like anywhere from 10 to 12 hours driving truck on a construction site, and at night I was going to a big warehouse running their forklift and stacking and moving. There were big giant cages that people move with. So people just put all their stuff in there and they haul it for them wherever or store it. So a lot of caffeine. I was taking, I was drinking a lot of coffee, a lot of energy drinks. At that time, I figured out what the aminos were, and it was basically powderized caffeine. So I was just drinking that stuff like crazy. It was not good for me.
No.
I mean, doing that during the day and then the weekends, party my face off, and it's crazy. It's amazing what our bodies can handle. So, man, but the stress was starting to take a toll on me. So 2018, though, my mom had come up to visit me because I was just gone. I mean, no one saw me. I was working like a dog. And so she came up to visit me, and I had just happened to have a weekend off that time. And so she came up, but then they called me that Saturday, like 10 a.m. and said, hey, can you work? I need you to work. And I was like, yes, man, to work. So I just said, sorry, Mom, I need to go. And so she left. Well, a week later, she overdosed and died in
Oh.
2018. So then life changed. It flipped. That's the beginning of where I started to see. I couldn't see it at the time. God started to really call me. He started to really reel me in now. So what I forgot to say is when I was in Fresno and I cried out to God to change this, I said, God, please change this. Take me out of here and I will serve you. Not fully understanding at that time what I was saying. Because God, now I understand when you make a covenant with him, it doesn't fall short. He expects you to uphold it. And so I didn't know that. I didn't know what he was going to do. I had no clue. I didn't know what he had in store for me. I was completely clueless. But he upheld his side of the deal.
Right.
But his deal wasn't fulfilled yet. So
right.
He expected from me, but he knew that I didn't know what I was expecting. You. Oh, I didn't even know. So,
right.
I had no clue.
Right.
So 2018, my mom passes by and I thought I knew what pain was. No, that was the first. It checked me. It made me think like, what am I doing? What's this life for anyways? Like, it really gave me an eye opener to not take life for granted for what we had. And so, I started to become more interested. It just came out of nowhere. I started getting drawn into the Bible.
Did you have a Bible?
My dad had an old one on the shelf that I had got my hands on, and I didn't know anything about the versions and all this stuff, but it was a King James version.
Okay.
So that didn't help I try to pick it up and I try to read it and just go, what the heck? I read maybe a paragraph and close it, put it on the shelf.
Okay.
Time would pass and it would happen over and over again. Eventually I ended up, YouTube became like all the time. So I started watching videos, but you know how YouTube is, you can start watching on one thing and you'll end up way over here. So I was just getting flooded with all this religious stuff at the time, but I was searching at that time. Now I was like hungry. I was like, okay, well, who's this God anyways? And what is this Bible about? And
did you have any more shootout prayers?
No. I was just searching and so I started to find videos. The two main people that really drew me in at first was the first one was Jordan Peterson, but he's an extreme intellectual. I am not at that level. I'm very basic. I'm like the physical, hands-on type guy. I'm not a brainiac.
Yeah.
But the way he explained things, I mean, he's a college professor, so he was going into this crazy depth that I was like super drawn into. I didn't quite understand. And then the other guy they call them apologists. They're basically people who explain in detail or go back and forth with people who are either against God or just have deep questions about why is this or why is that. So I watched a lot of those videos. And eventually it came to the point where I was searching and searching and searching on YouTube, and I was looking at all this stuff, and then God started to intervene, and he put a person in my life that changed everything. It finally gave me some direction, because YouTube was it's like a shotgun blast. It went in all directions, and so I couldn't get any like foundation to walk on. So, man, actually looking back, it's interesting. I don't really think about it too often, but right before I found God, or God found me, well, he didn't find me, I found God. The devil, I mean, I didn't realize he was working overtime trying to stop me, because right before I met this guy, that's when the psychedelics came in, and I was getting into taking mushrooms and seeing all kinds of weird stuff and having these weird, it was strange, but it was 2019 and I was truck driving, and at that time I was hauling logs, and it was for the fire that had just happened up north in Paradise. That's what it was. And they were clear cutting because they had to get all the burnt lumber out of there. And so there was a ton of work, and I show up bright and early in the morning this one particular day, and we're getting loaded. The hill boom is loading all the logs on the trucks, and the way that it works is They load you, you pull forward, and you throw chains over it to strap
Mhm.
it down, and then you hit the road.
Okay.
Well, I was sitting in my truck, typical introverted me, and watching this older guy ahead of me. He just got loaded, and he's struggling to throw these chains over. He's an older man. He's heavier. He's heavyweight,
Mhm.
and so looking back now, I see it was God talking to me. I thought it was just me back and forth in my head.
Sure.
God spoke to me and said, "Go help that guy."
Mhm.
And right away I was like, "No way! I don't know who that is. I'm not gonna go. I don't ever go just up to a stranger and say,
Mhm.
'Hey, how's it going? Would you like some help?'" I thought
Mhm.
it was the strangest thing. I was like, "No way! I'm not doing that." And I
Mhm.
went back and forth and back and forth, and finally I was like, "Fine, I'll go help him." And I set the brake on the truck and I got out and I went out there and I was like, "Do you need some help?"
Mhm.
Long story short, this guy's name is Daryl. Um,
Mhm.
we developed a friendship.
Mhm.
Um, and along the way, the company I was working for, it all fell through, and I started working for that guy instead.
For
It's
Daryl.
for Daryl,
Mhm.
and so I was driving his truck, and then the season, typical construction season, wintertime rolls around, work
Mhm.
flatlines, but he asked me to come over to his house and help him out with cutting and splitting wood, or maintaining the yard, or feeding the animals, or he was just keeping me busy, and
Mhm.
he was being a friend at the same time.
Mhm.
But there was something about him that started to really draw me in. So I would just pay attention to how he handled, like, there were some stressful situations at work, like any typical guy, especially in the construction field, would blow his top and get into a
Mhm.
fist fight, or at least a yelling match. And
Mhm.
but he just was like easy going, handled it with grace and peace. I just couldn't. I was like, who is this guy? What the
Right.
heck?
Right.
And so he was just I was just drawn in and drawn in. And finally, those months where he had me come over to help at his house, he
Did
said
he live in
he
Placerville?
did. He lives in
Okay.
Placerville.
Okay.
So so he asked me to come over at 7 a.m. Just be here at 7 a.m. So I
Mhm.
arrive at 7 a.m. and I still picture it. I knock on the door and his wife would let me in. Oh yeah, come in and sit down at the table. He's just getting up, and I remember looking down the hall, and he's like, his hair's all
Right.
crazy, and he's without his shirt on and his shorts, and he's like shuffling down the hall. He's an
Yeah.
older man,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and I just remember that picture. And he come into um the
Living
kitchen
room.
dining
Okay.
room, and he's from back east somewhere, and he would always, my name's Cameron, but he would always say, "Cameron, how you doing, Cameron?" And he'd go get his coffee, and then he'd sit down and he'd pull his Bible off the shelf, and he'd
Mhm.
sit down. And the first time I seen that, it just like was mind blowing to me. Like, this is the first experience I've ever had seeing somebody actually get into the Word, and not just
Mm.
carry around a Bible, or someone that
Mm.
acted like they know what they're doing. You could tell he wasn't trying to impress me. He wasn't trying to do anything other than that's what he did in the morning.
Right.
And so he opened up his Bible, and we'd sit down, and he'd just leave me be and let me drink my coffee, and he'd drink his, and he'd just read. He
Mhm.
wasn't trying to
Not
tell
out
me.
loud, just
No,
to yeah.
he was reading to
Just what he was
do
doing.
what he was doing. And
Mhm.
I could tell it was like his daily thing. And so I was like, whoa, he's reading the Bible that I could never read. And it took me like a few days, because I was still introverted. So, like, even though he was my friend, I was still like, well, I don't know if I should say anything, or I don't want to be weird. I mean, just all this
Mhm.
stuff is junking with my head. And he's and one day I was just like, I gotta ask. I gotta know what he's reading. I
Mhm.
gotta know. And so
Mhm.
I was like, what are you reading? I can't remember exactly what he was reading, but he was just like, well, let me show you. And he was just
Mhm.
like, he'd start reading, and then he would tell me, explain to me, and then eventually one thing led to another, and he was like, do you, do you know how to get to heaven? Do you know who God is? And I was just
Mhm.
like, well, I believe there's God. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said something
Mhm.
along those lines. And he's just like, well, do you know who Jesus is? And I was just,
Mhm.
I've heard of him. I don't know. But he's like, well, let me tell you about Jesus. Or
Mm.
I don't know the words he
Right.
used, but he
Right.
basically explained to me the gospel. He explained to me who Jesus was, and how we get to heaven, and how Jesus died for us, and how he went up on the cross for us. And just hits me hard. Um,
So in all your YouTube videos, you hadn't seen
I had
that?
never seen the gospel.
Oh
No, in
wow.
all those YouTube videos that I
Mhm.
had watched, not one of them explained how to have a relationship with God,
Okay.
a true relationship. It
Mhm.
was more at that time, looking at all those videos, is more
Information quest.
like a knowledge flex. It was
Yeah.
like, look at how much I know. So
Okay.
it was like, wow, that's cool that you know all this stuff. But I didn't really think of it like as, wait a minute, I can have a relationship with God? Like,
Yeah.
what? So Daryl explained this to me, and the first thing that drops in my mind, the typical introverted mind, was like, there's no way I'm doing this in front of Daryl. So I was like, and he didn't push. He was just like, he explained it to me, and we went on our way. We went through and finished that work day, and I went home.
Yeah.
But it was just, it sat on me, and it's like I knew what I had to do. So I went home, and at that time I had my own studio. I'd moved out.
Okay.
Man,
Like
I
the
didn't
frat
even
house.
think about. Yeah, it's like God perfectly aligned everything at the same time. Because all at that same time this was all happening,
Yeah.
I dropped off of the job I was working for. The YouTube videos weren't getting me nowhere. I met this guy Daryl. God made a way. Well, what had happened was I had a huge run-in with all my friends, and I ended up moving out.
Okay.
And so it's all this stuff came together at the same time,
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Look, I just now even thought about that. And so I get home, and it's like, I don't know. It was late. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock
After
at night.
working at Daryl's house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I don't know if I worked there the whole day, but basically I didn't get home till late.
Okay.
But I knew exactly what I had to do. And I remember going to my bed and thinking, the first thought I thought was like, well, God, I don't know how to pray. so I'm going to do my best. And so I don't remember exactly how I worded it, but basically I said, God, I know who you are now. I understand who Jesus is, and I know, Jesus, that you came and you died for me. And it still hits hard, but I basically gave my life to Christ at that moment. And then this weight was just lifted. It's hard to explain. It's not like a backpack, because it's like having one of those weighted blankets draped over your entire body, and that weight was suddenly lifted, and I just wept. I understood for the first time, and at the same time, while that weight was lifted, it talks about the veil being lifted. Mm-hmm. He lifted the veil for me to see my sin. And I understood, and that's a big part of the reason why I cried so much. I mean, not even just that. It was just overwhelming, because all of it hit at once. Feeling bad for my sin for the first time and seeing it for what it was. I never thought there was anything wrong with, like, I'm not hurting no one watching pornography. I'm not hurting no one stealing stuff from the grocery store. They're millionaires anyways. Right. Like, I'm not killing someone. And so, and then, but that was only just the part of it. It was like God showing me who he is and his love and the warmth. And it was just, it was too much. Mm-hmm. So I just cried. I don't know. And then, gosh, but if you've probably heard some testimonies before, it's like people talk about the next day they wake up and everything's bright. It's like, yeah, what are you smoking? But no, it was like, I didn't notice it. Like, it was dark then at that night, but I went to bed after that, and I woke up the next morning, and it was just like, I felt like I was floating. I felt like I could just like bounce across the water or something. It was strange. But everything it was vibrant, and things were different. And so I went to work the next day, and Daryl, he saw the instant change, and he was just like, he was super happy for me. And it was like, what is this? And then that same time, that day, it was like this hunger set in. It was like this deep hunger. It's hard to explain. It's just like this desire to know more. It was like, I want more, and I don't know how to get it kind of feeling.
Everything's more awake.
Yeah, it's like, I want to know more, but it was the hunger for God. It was the hunger to know, like, now I really want to know what this Bible is. Right. What is there? I know this is the key. I know what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is, but I know it has something to do with this. Mm-hmm. That's all I knew. Mm-hmm. And then I struggled at the same time with understanding, because in when the gospel was explained to me is like, you've been forgiven of your sins.
Mm.
But I couldn't figure out, like, wait, but don't I have to like stop sinning though? Like, how is it that I'm forgetting it? In the beginning, it was really hard for my mind to wrap around that thought. And this is the next really important thing that happened to me that I need to testify about, because I know there's so many people who probably most likely go through this. The next day, mind you, up to this point, it was a daily thing, and I was in chains with this pornography, and it I couldn't stop. And so when I did give my life to Christ, I felt like free, and I felt light, and it wasn't on my mind constantly. But the day after that, I went home and I fell right back into it. But this time, I felt horrible. I cried myself to sleep that night. And I was like, because God just showed me who he was. He showed me how much he loved me. He showed me what he did for me. Like I for the first time understood what Jesus did for me. And so to think that I could just turn around one day later and betray him like that, I felt horrible. So that day I woke up and it went from vibrancy to dull. And I went like, I barely dragged myself out of bed. I cried myself to sleep. I woke up crying, and I had to go to work the next day with Daryl. And I was scared to death to, like, I couldn't stop crying. I was like, how am I going to go in front of Daryl and not cry? Like, and so I did my best to like clean myself up and like, all right, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. And this lump was just so like it was thick in my throat, like I swallowed an apple and it was stuck. It was like just this lump. And that morning I was, for whatever reason, he was up a little bit earlier, but we didn't meet in his house. He came out to me out in front of his yard, and the lump just got harder and bigger, and I just was like, don't cry, and I couldn't hold it. It just broke, and I just started crying, and he was like, what's going on? So, oh man, I explained to him, like, how could I betray God like this? How could I just betray him after I just learned what he did for me? And so he started crying, and that was the first time I realized that we're sinners, that it's an ongoing battle. And for the life of me, I just struggled with wrapping my mind around that, because I thought I had to walk this perfect line. And so he explained to me, he said, look, Cameron, from now until the day you die, you're going to struggle with sin. But it's a battle. You have to, you got to work. It's not going to come easy. You got to work for it. And so I took what he said. I couldn't quite understand it. I almost didn't believe it. And I struggled with it for a long time. But then life started to progress. It's now 2021. It's like March. Daryl got me a job. I ended up going up north, and they were working us 6 days a week, consistent. Like, and so.
And Daryl's not on that job.
No.
Okay.
It's just me. So he was at home. He had some family stuff he was dealing with that year, so he was at home, and I went to work, and I mean, so, but I felt different now. I felt convicted for doing wrong, and I still struggled with the pornography. It was lessened, but it was still on and off.
But
it wasn't daily anymore, but it was still on and off. And then, man, then I realized now Satan was really trying to get me off track, because I got saved, I gave my life to Christ, but nothing in my life really changed. I didn't go to church. I didn't read the Bible hardly at all. I was still watching YouTube videos, but really not a whole lot changed. I still had this immense amount of hunger, and I was trying to fill it with YouTube videos. But then put a girl in my path who, as soon as I seen her, I thought this is a bad idea. But that flesh part of me was still like, man, but that looks fun. So went down that whole path again, and then it blew up. It just went horribly wrong, and I knew right away, like, I knew I shouldn't have done that. That was the difference. Now I was starting to see, like, whoa, this is wrong. this point, I was living, the company I was working for was putting us up, paying for hotels. So we
Okay.
were working consistently 6 days a week. I
Mhm.
had opted to move out of my um, uh, studio and put
Mhm.
everything in storage to save money,
Okay.
and then just live wherever they put me up. So
Okay.
I came back only to town to visit Daryl, and I think he needed help splitting wood or something.
Mhm.
And so I did. This is now COVID time, 2021. So COVID's going around. I didn't care
Okay.
for it though. I was just like, yeah. I just didn't care.
2021, not 2020. So it had
Hmm.
been around for a bit.
It's been
Yeah.
around now.
Yeah.
So I'd gone through 2020. Is like life didn't change other than the craziness of the economy and everything.
Yeah.
But then I went back after that weekend and went back to work that Monday, and I woke up just like burnt. I was like out of energy, and I had all these body aches, but I was still had enough energy. I just went to work at 4 a.m. is when we started, and but I made it through half the day before I completely ran out of energy, and I ended up. It was a slow day that day, and I ended up falling asleep in the truck, and I woke back up.
Wait, driving it?
No, we were.
Okay.
It was a slow day, so I parked
Okay.
and fell
Good.
asleep like
Hmm.
afternoon, and I woke up and I was like, oh no, I am sick as a dog right now. My whole body aches now. My head's starting to throb, and I was just like, I need to go back to the hotel. And so I did. I called my boss and I was like, hey, I'm sick as a dog. And they were like, oh, stay away. Like, you go
Right.
do what you need to do. They were all afraid of the whole COVID thing. I
Oh.
went back and I slept for 7 days straight.
Oh.
I literally slept for 7 days straight. I got up just to go use the restroom. I had the worst headache,
You
the
got
worst
COVID.
body aches. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it hit hard.
Yeah.
I was coughing up green stuff,
Mm.
and by the end of 7 days, oh no, so something interesting I had forgotten about was in that time I was sick as a dog. I wasn't afraid or anything,
Hmm.
but I remember waking up just like barely being able to move. I was hurting so much. Like it hurt to move my eyes to side, like just hurt everything.
Mhm.
And so I remember just enough energy to roll out of bed and get on my knees, and I'd pray and I'd ask, like, God, please take this from me. Like, heal me from this. This is horrible.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't know how to pray, but I was just asking, like, genuinely, please.
Mhm.
And so by the end of 7 days, I noticed my energy was slowly starting to increase. And so I had enough energy to get up in the morning, and I was able to like go down to the drugstore, like Walgreens or whatever, and get ibuprofen. And so I got some ibuprofen and I took some, and I was just like, after about an hour it kicked in. I was like, oh my gosh, I can get some relief. And I thought, I think I'm getting better. And then a couple hours would pass and it'd wear off, and I'd just be like out again, and end up sleeping another couple days.
Yeah.
And so I started to realize, like, wait a minute, I can use this as a way to drive home. And so I ended up taking a bunch of ibuprofen, and I knew, because it was a 2-hour drive, that I was going to have a window to drive back. And so I'd called Daryl and found out he's also sick as a dog too. And basically what had happened is he got COVID from his friend that same day that I came to visit. So that's how we both got.
Right.
Anyways, so I went back, and I figured I'm just going to go to his house. He's got COVID. It's not going to affect. We're both got COVID. So he let me sleep on his couch, and we just, for the next week again, we were in the same boat. We just wake up, barely get out of the room to go get a little bit of coffee. And his wife, miraculously, she's older than him and was preparing food for us and totally fine. Like, I couldn't understand how she got out scot-free, and was like force feeding us because hunger was gone. I already slept 7 days without eating, and then that too. And I was like, anyway, so we were both sick as a dog together. It was kind of a good memory.
Right.
Even though it was horrible at the time. But we
strangely, I know what you mean.
it's funny how, like, you're just sitting on the couch and just
being
like,
weak together.
Yeah. How do you feel? Horrible. What about you? Oh yeah, horrible. And sit for maybe an hour or two and be like, okay, I'm gonna go back to bed now. Okay, all right, me too. So it was a good what had ended up happening is the time I was there, his wife was monitoring his oxygen levels
Mhm.
and had one of those finger things to
Yes.
monitor. So he ended up dropping down 89% blood oxygen. And I saw it like right before he left, because his wife was like, "You're going to the hospital." No, so like she was like, "Okay, you cannot." He was kind of against it, and but as soon as he dropped, she said, "No, we're not doing this anymore. You're going to the hospital."
Mhm.
And so before he left, I saw him, and he was able to walk, but man, he was delirious. He was like not fully there. So I was like, man, okay, well. So he ended up going off to the hospital. I improved. I got my strength back, barely enough to get back to work, and went back to work. And a week passed or so, and then he called me, and so he sounded his voice and everything. I can tell, like, whoa, you sound like you got your strength back. And like Daryl, he was the type of the guy that's like super chipper, easygoing, always bubbly, like the type of guy that you want to be around because he lifts you up. And I was like, Daryl, you sound great. Like I can hear the night and day difference in your voice. And he responded, but I noticed he was down. He said, yeah, I'm doing all right, but they're going to put me in a coma. And I was like, oh, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Because at that time, I've been already hearing about all these stories that are going around about COVID. And so I was just like, yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to let it get to me, though. And I'm looking on the like positive side of things. And then I was just like, I said, well, I'll be there when you get out. I'll see you in about a week. I'll be there for you. And he didn't even respond to that. He said, take care of my house or take care of my place for as long as you can. And I thought about it, and I was just like, at first I was like, what do you mean? And then because I was like, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm going on the positive side of things. And I was just like, and I thought, oh, he probably just means like, oh, he's going to be gone for a week. He needs someone to split the wood and whatever. And I was like, yeah, no problem. I'll go over there and I'll split the wood and I'll maintain the property and everything. And then he hung up, and I was like, when he hung up, I was just, it kind of sat for a minute, and I was like, what is he trying to say? Like, what's going on? And then again, I shot it down. I was like, no, he's going to be fine. And I just kind of like pushed it away, and I was like, I'll be there to help out around his place. So then another week passes, but this time his daughter calls me, and she's from Florida, and she's in tears. She's like totally tore up. And they basically, she told me, like, they put him on life support, and he's declining. His organs are shutting down, and they're not going to just prolong it on life support. They're going to pull the plug. And so she said, we're going to do a video call for all of close friends and family who want to, like, basically say goodbye to Daryl, because and I've heard this before, where people in comas, they can still hear you, they just can't respond. And so they did, and their family got on, and everyone's saying their goodbyes, and Daryl, he just laid out on the hospital bed, and you could just hear the monitor beeping in the background, beep beep of his heartbeat. And I get on, and I just say, I don't know what I said exactly, but basically, I'm gonna miss you, and I'm bummed that we didn't get to know each other better, because like we were just starting to become good friends, and he was taking me out shooting and teaching me about the whole guns thing and horses and mules and donkey. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Teaching me the ropes and heavy equipment and everything, and it's almost like confirmation that he heard me, because at that point when I said that, he took like a deep breath inside, and I thought, like, just a part of me thought like he heard me, and I was all choked up and crying at that time. I could barely even get anything else out. And just said my goodbyes, and was kind of frustrated, and then he was gone, just like that. And I felt lost, because he was a really big way from me to Christ. He was a stepping stone for me to Christ, and I felt like he
he had all this knowledge and know-how of questions he can answer that I didn't know, and I like relied on him. I didn't trust the churches. I had seen the hypocrisy. I didn't want anything to do with the whole pass around the money plate and everything. I was like, I don't want any part of that. That's why I wasn't going to church. And so I was kind of frustrated with God. And so I was frustrated with God that, like, in my mind, I was thinking, like, this is going to be my mentor. And I need a mentor because I don't understand this stuff. There was a lot of unknowns and, like, anyways, so I was like, God, like, okay, I believe that you're God. You're all powerful. You can do anything you want. And I know you can teach me, but you know me. I'm the type of guy that is hands-on. I need someone to look at so I can follow in their footsteps, that can show me the ropes. And I prayed that. I asked, like, God, like, you took away the guy I thought I was going to be my mentor. Kind of frustrated. So that year ended, the work year ended, the whole typical, like, work dries up thing. I went back, but this time I went back to Daryl's house because I didn't have a studio now, and I didn't have a place to rent yet, and I was searching, and it's expensive. And so I asked his wife if I could. I had a Sprinter van at the time, and I asked, hey, could I just, like, stay at the bottom of the property? She's on 3 acres. In my van, and she said, oh yeah, no problem, just stay down there. And so I started living there, and then it dawned on me, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I remembered what he said. He said take care of my property or take care of, what did he say? He said something like, take care of my place for as long as you can. And it hit, and I realized, like, he wasn't talking about in the meantime, which was obvious, but he was talking about his wife and his son who was living there. His wife isn't in her 80s. She's not physically able to maintain 3 acres. And then I ended up, by the grace of God, on that property, and I've been there ever since, actually. And so I maintained the property. I cut and split all the wood. I stacked all the wood. I got the fire going in the morning. I maintained, like he said, and it was, like, bittersweet. I was like, thanks, Daryl. One of your last wishes was, like, I need your help, but in return I'll help you, kind of a thing. And I was like, typical Daryl. He's always helping everyone. So I was like, I get it now. And so then I started living there, and at that time his wife was like, she went to church pretty consistently, and she's like, I know you're saved now. You should probably start looking into a church. And I expressed to her my distrust, I guess you could say, for religion. I've been in the Mormon church. I've been in several different churches. And granted, I didn't know much, but I didn't like the whole club atmosphere. Like, you show up, and the big people are welcoming, but everyone else kind of looks at you like, well, who are you? And like, well, you don't know nothing. Like, that whole, I didn't want any of that. So she's like, you should check this church out. And I was like, no, I don't know if church is for me. But I knew deep down, like, I need to go to church. I didn't know why. And so I was like, oh man, okay. And so at this time, I still had this introvertedness about me. So bear with me, that's about to change. So eventually I break down and go, okay, I'll go check out this church. And so I go to church with her, and God shows up again. This time he shows up in a way not expecting. You'd think, like, he'd show up when the word is preached or something. No, he showed up in worship. I never experienced worship before. I showed up, and the worship that I was used to was the Mormon church. It was hymns, vocals only, and it was very monotone. It was not, like, enthusiastic, like, we're praising the Lord. So I went to this church, and it wasn't, like, super, like, everyone's crazy dancing or anything, but it was genuine, like, we're pouring our hearts out for God. And as soon as it started, I started crying. But I'm, like, trying to cover it up. I'm like, oh, I can't cry in front of all these people. This is strange for me. And I was definitely not going to stand up, let alone sing. No way I was not going to do that. So I was sitting there just crying and trying to hide it. And I was like, what is this? And so they started preaching, and then months would go by, and I was just, that void of hunger was getting filled. I was starting to learn. I was starting to grow. And then the next thing came along, and God now spoke to me And now when I say spoke to me, I'm not meaning like he literally audibly spoke to me. He laid it into me like he spoke from like within me or something. It's hard to explain. For those of you who know, you know. But for those of you who have never experienced it, you will know when you experience it if you come to Christ. So, so he spoke to me and said, "You need to go to Bible study now." And I was like, "No way! These guys, I'm what am I? 28 years old, 29 now." And I was like, "There's no way they're gonna make fun of me. Like I don't know nothing. I'm a young man now, and all these people in here, they've been in church since they were 5. They know the ropes and everything. And this was what was going on in my head. And then the other part of me was like, well, so what if you don't know? Like everyone starts somewhere. But then I started to realize like, oh, that's the enemy. He's trying to discourage me. I couldn't see it at the time, but looking back, I realized like, wow, I'm starting to see the warfare now. I was totally blind to it at the beginning, at that point especially. So I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to start saying yes. Whoever invites me to whatever, I'm just going to start saying yes. I'm going for it. Like, I don't care. And I'm just going to show up. And if they ask me questions, I'm just going to go, look, I don't know anything. I just know that Christ died for me. That's about it. But when I did that, I started, the first Bible study I went to was the men's Bible study. And I was the youngest 2 times over. These guys were like 70 plus. So I felt way out of place. But when I genuinely said, like, I don't know anything, guys, I'm here to learn, they all embraced me and were like, not literally, but like embraced me in a way of like, let me show you. And they were excited. They were like enthusiastic, and they were like explaining things. And I was just in awe. I'm getting poured from all directions now. And another thing that God did in 2021, when I first started going to church, is my typical year was like, from spring to winter, I was 6 days a week. I was a slave to money. I worked my butt off. That's all I did. That's all I knew. But this year in 2021, God dried up my work. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find work. And in that time, it's like, this is typical God. When he throws a stone, he hits multiple birds at one time. He doesn't just take out one at a time. He's like, if I'm going to throw a stone, I'm going to get all of them in a row at the same time. And so he's doing all this at the same time. He dries up my work. He tests me on my faith in the word that he kept laying on my heart that year was, do you really believe that I am the provider, as he says in the Bible? So look at the birds and the bees. Are they not provided for? How much more will I provide for you, my son, who have made you in my image? He just kept reminding me. And it was hard to understand, like, how could I not work and still get provided for? But month after month, I would worry and I'd worry, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to meet rent? And then suddenly, some way, somehow, I was able to meet the need. And I was blown away. You would think after 2 months, maybe 3 months, maybe 4 months, I would just start to get the pattern and go, oh, okay, I don't have to worry. No, all 12 months, I was like worrying. Anyways, so instead of working 6 days a week, now I understand why he did that. Is while teaching me to rely on him as provider, he also opened up my time to absolutely submerge myself into the Word. I went from no church, not reading the Bible, no Bible studies, far from that, to 5 Bible studies a week and church. Every day almost I was going and learning, and I was just I couldn't get enough. A lot of it I didn't understand, especially when it was in the complicated books of the Bible and the depths. Now, which I know is the meat. There's a difference. There's the milk and the meat. I didn't know any of that, but it really accelerated me. And then 2022 happened, and God answered my prayer for a mentor. I've been going to church now 6 to 8 months, and a guest speaker came, and he's from Russia, and it was interesting. This guy was like, I've never seen anything like it. It was like a form of Daryl, but with a lot more energy, which like totally met me eye to eye because I came from like a hyperactive child. So his energy level, I was like, I understand you. Yes. And so he preached. I don't even know what he was preaching on that day, but it was like, wow, what was that? I want to know more of that. And so just by happenstance, no, not by happenstance, divine appointment, I crossed paths with him after church. Like after church, everyone disperses. It's just a mess. Everyone's everywhere. Everyone going to their cars, going to get coffee. I mean, talking. And I just happened to cross paths with him. And he just said, hey, how's it going? I'm Igor, and like, nice to meet you. And hey, I got a Bible study you should come check out. And at that time, I was just saying yes to everything. And so I said yes. I started showing up, and I was blown away. It, like the study and the depth we were going into. But this isn't where the important part of it is. As I poured all my time into it, into diving into the Word and being diligent, like I wasn't there just to show up. I wanted to know. If I had questions I was going to ask him, I didn't care how stupid I looked. And a lot of times I realized after that experience was that question wasn't just sitting with me. A lot of people in that same room had the same questions. So I was just pouring my heart out. And then Igor, he was from Russia, saved in Russia, was saved during the time when the Soviet Union collapsed and Christianity entered in that country for the first time. He was radically saved. It was night-day transformation. He started a church within the first year he was saved, kind of guy. So he travels the world and goes to different countries preaching and teaching the word. And anyways, so I didn't know who this guy was, but man, I had no idea what God had in store for me. So Igor caught attention to my diligence and hunger for Christ. And 2023, I'm only now a year into, I would say, depth, because 2021, I didn't do anything. 2022, it was like, I don't know, March or April before I started going to church. Then 2023, early 2023, it was about a year in. So it was like March, it was March, that he said, hey, let's or before March, he said, let's start working on your testimony. I want to know where did you come from? What was your life like? And so I just told him what I'm telling you guys now is, where did I come from? What did my life look like? And he was like, we need to fine tune that. And also, I want you to give your testimony in Ireland. We're going to go to Ireland. And I was like, what? No way. I've never been out of the country before, let alone stand in front of a whole church and give my testimony. I've never even given my testimony before. What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, you'll be fine. You can do it. You can do it. And I was, everything in me, every ounce of strength and every cell in my body was like, no, we're not doing it. Oh no, no way. And so, but I was in that mindset of like, you know what, God, I'm just hungry for you. And I understood that he's provider, understood that he's with us. But still it was scary. I mean, and I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to go for it. Like, I was scared I was going to stumble. I was scared I was going to choke up on stage, but I was like, you know, Lord, if this is for you, I'm just going to do it. And the blessing that came out of it was immense. He showed me that there's nothing to be afraid of, though still to this day I get on stage and get nervous. Doesn't matter. But he showed me how it grew me. Suddenly I felt like I took a giant leap, and I felt like there's depth now. There's more understanding. The fear was knocked down of getting out and reaching to others who were in the dark or in church or wherever. And then after that, I like doubled down. I just said, you know what? I want more. And I started to get, it's a strange thing. It's like I started to not care about this world anymore, because I came from the darkness. I've been there. I've seen that. I know what the world has to offer me, and there's nothing there. It was clear. And then God showed me all that he has to offer, but he expects us to walk that path now. And it's not meant to be easy, as like right after the day after I was saved, I was just beat down and tore up because I thought once saved, it's all sunshine and butterflies. It's not, unfortunately. We had to work for it still. Not that our working is the thing that's going to earn us into the kingdom. God did that. but he expects us to perform. We are, is I like the example that I've heard before is we're a glove. God is the hand. The glove has no point and no part in the mechanics work in fixing the car. If you set the glove on the engine, say, fix the engine, it's not going to fix the engine itself. The mechanic puts the glove on and then he does the work. The same for us. We are the glove. We are his hands or his tools, I would say. He puts us on as a glove, those who are willing to. He's not going to force you. And then he does the work. That's why we can't be puffed up, because if he does perform miracles or miraculous things through us, it's not us that does it. It's his spirit that resides in us. And that's where I started to get some understanding. I would say I started to get a backbone in Christ now. I wasn't easily pushed around and wavered. I started to understand the basics of the gospel and then the foundation, and then start to get into the depth. And it was not until 2025 where I understood now the calling that he calls us all to. And it's funny, actually, I'm sitting below this sign that says that he says, go into all the world. This one's quotes Mark, but this is also Matthew 28:19 and 20. Go into all the world, preaching and teaching the gospel and baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. He commissions every single one of us to do that. And so last year, 2025, was the first year I realized, oh, dang, like I'm called. He's calling me to do this work, and I haven't done any of it yet. Or I feel like I haven't done any of it yet. And so that's where I'm at now. And if I were to give any advice is, no matter what, this is the one thing that I hinged on, no matter what, just keep going towards Christ. There will be times where you fall. There will be times where you're devastated. There was a time where I had major church hurt, and I almost walked away, and God stepped in and said, who are you to judge what they're doing? This is between me and you, is it not? And then I realized, oh, I need to let go of everything that's going on in the world with other people. It's not between me and them and God. It's between me and God. And so now I'm understanding, and it takes time. It takes effort. God says that we will go through various trials and tribulations. It's for our benefit, but it's also so we grow. Is it not that when we go through these trials, when you get hurt, when you go through a hard time and you come out of it and you're alive still, don't you grow? Don't you learn from that? And so that's where I'm at now. And anyways, I hope this message was a huge encouragement to you guys.
That's good, Cameron. So what I would end with is just asking, well, if there's anything more you wanted to share, that's great. But also, what would you say to someone who doesn't yet know Christ?
A couple years ago, I would have just said, if you don't know Christ, you got to know him. Like, stop messing around, stop being dumb, just like come to Christ and know it. But I understand now that there's a time for all of us. It has to be on God's perfect time. So if you're listening to this and your time is not yet, or maybe if your time is now, if you're listening and you hear this testimony, it moves you, I say, what do you have to lose? I can testify on, I've been in the dark, and my darkness, the path that I walked may have been different from yours, and maybe it's similar. There's nothing this world has to offer for us. There's so much more that is hidden from you if you don't know God, if you don't have a relationship with God. What this world shows us is you got to make money. You got to be, if you're a man, you got to be the man of the household. You got to provide. You have no time to lose. I'm in my 30s. I get it. That pressure, the constant pressure of this world is work and you'll have the money which gives you the happiness. It's wrong. It's empty. I would say just test it. God's not afraid. Don't rely on church. Don't rely on people. Test God directly. If you really want to know him, if you truly with all your heart want to know him, ask him as I did, and you will see. He will answer. It may not be the way you want it to. It may not be the exact way that you thought it was going to be, but you may not see it even at that time. But when you do, if you do walk down that path, you will turn back and see, hindsight is 2020, and you will see God's footsteps in the sand. There's no doubt it. There's no doubt. And also, not to be like fear mongering, which we all know, most people know, is the only way into heaven is through Christ. There's only one way. There is no other way. There's no Christ and. There's no halfway in between. You have to know Christ. You have to have a relationship. It says that you have to admit Christ being your Lord and Savior. Don't get lost in He's my Savior and walk around like sunshine and dandelions, sunshine and butterflies. It's not like that. Lord means He is your master. You submit to Him. You come to Him in obedience, in reverence of heart, saying, God, I believe that He is my Lord, God, or Jesus is my Lord. I want to submit. I want what you want. And then you will see. And I promise you that chains that you're in, not literally chains, it could be literal, but the chains of sin, the chains of addiction will be broken. No doubt. No doubt. I can testify 100% on that. Like, try it, test it and see. Don't test it through people. Test God Himself.
Mm-hmm.
He will answer.
Well, thank you, Cameron, for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus be glorified.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.